So, if you've ever watched, like, a master storyteller build a whole fantasy universe, you know the trick is, well, you start really small.
Right. Yeah, you don't just drop right into the cosmic battle.
Exactly. You don't begin with the epic battle between light and dark. You start with something completely ordinary, like a cup of coffee
Hmm.
or a traffic jam.
Something grounded.
Yeah, because once the audience nods and says, "Oh yeah, I know exactly what that feels like," you have them. And then, I mean, you can take them absolutely anywhere.
It's basically the psychological anchor of relatability. Like, once you establish that shared reality, the leaps into the extraordinary, they don't really feel like leaps at all. They just feel like the logical next steps.
Which brings us to today. Welcome to today's deep dive. Now, before we go any further, I just need to give a quick, but honestly a super crucial heads up to you listening.
Yeah, this is important.
The video we're looking at today, it's this sprawling YouTube interview featuring Candace Owens on the Elizabeth Lane TV channel. And it contains some really intensely polarizing political views.
And massive, highly charged conspiracy theories.
Oh, massive. Theories that span both domestic and international topics.
Yeah.
So our job here, just to be crystal clear, isn't to validate or debunk any of this. We're absolutely not taking sides.
No, not at all.
We're just here to neutrally map out the architecture of these arguments so that you, the listener, can understand how these sweeping narratives are built and, why they resonate with so many people.
And mapping it out is honestly a massive undertaking because the worldview presented in this interview is, it's incredibly complex.
Yeah.
It's like this unified theory where every single piece of modern culture somehow connects to a hidden underlying structure.
Which, bring you back to that storytelling trick we mentioned, the trajectory of this conversation is just wild. We're going to start with a funny, mundane memory about glistening tomatoes at a New Mexico Chipotle.
Glistening tomatoes.
Yes, glistening. And somehow, through the internal logic of this interview, that late-night fast food run connects to the assassination of JFK, a bitter HR dispute at the Daily Wire, Sigmund Freud covering up occult rituals, and an international lawsuit involving the president of France.
I mean, it is a phenomenal journey. And to really grasp how this worldview functions, you have to look at the catalyst.
Right, where it all begins.
Exactly. For Owens, the emotional core of this entire narrative is her reaction to the death of conservative figure Charlie Kirk.
Which, it's worth noting, she talks about not as a tragic medical event, but repeatedly, and without any hesitation, as an assassination.
Yes, she frames it as this massive cover-up.
But before she gets into the conspiracy part, she grounds the audience in this deeply humanizing memory. She talks about traveling with him constantly, doing 4 events a week.
It's burning the candle at both ends.
Totally. And there's this one night she says it's 4 a.m. and they're waiting outside a Walmart in the middle of nowhere because they forgot something.
As you do on a campaign trail.
Right. And eventually they end up at a random Chipotle in New Mexico, and they're wearing Build the Wall MAGA shirts.
The visual of that is just so striking. Like, 2 prominent political figures, totally exhausted, in MAGA gear, eating late-night fast food.
Yeah, and she says the tacos were just so incredible and the tomatoes were, quote, glistening so beautifully that Charlie literally sits there and questions their entire political stance.
Wait, over the tomatoes?
Over the tomatoes. He jokes, maybe we have this wall thing wrong, maybe we need to hear the other side. It's funny, it's self-aware, and it just makes you feel like you were right there in the booth with them.
Which is exactly why it's such an effective persuasion tactic. By spending time on the glistening tomatoes, she is essentially telling the listener, hey, I am a normal person. I observe the real world exactly like you do.
Right, and your guard drops.
Exactly, the listener's guard drops. But the very moment that baseline of normalcy is established, the interview completely pivots to the supernatural.
A pivot that actually includes this bizarre contradiction. Because right after talking about traveling with him 4 times a week and sharing these intimate moments over Chipotle, she literally says, I didn't know Charlie Kirk, I'd never met Charlie Kirk, and he came to me in my dream, which was weird.
Wait, she says she never met him right after the Chipotle story?
Yes.
It's a really striking moment of cognitive dissonance in the conversation.
It really is. But however you parse that contradiction, the dream itself becomes the absolute key to her entire investigation. She claims that in this dream, Charlie hugged her, told her she was doing just fine, and when she asked who killed him, he said, the same people that killed JFK.
Wow. And notice how the dream isn't just treated as, a manifestation of grief.
Right.
In her framework, the dream is treated as primary evidence. It becomes her investigative true north.
Which leads to this intense magnifying glass scrutiny of Charlie's widow, Erica Kirk. Owens just lists off these behaviors that she finds highly suspicious.
Like what kind of behaviors?
Well, Erica, giggling on a Zoom call 6 days after the death. Or joking about Egyptian planes during a Fox News appearance, skipping court dates. And, maybe the most bizarre one, allowing the literal tent that Charlie died under to be used for photo ops at a convention called Amfest.
I mean, that's a classic conspiratorial mechanism right there.
How so?
Well, when you start with the conclusion, in this case, the conclusion given to her by the dream that it was an assassination, you work backward.
Oh, I see.
Any behavior from the grieving widow that doesn't perfectly fit this very narrow preconceived script of how mourning should look is instantly weaponized. It's used as proof of complicity or a cover-up.
But, I mean, using a dream to guide a true crime investigation feels a bit like using a magic 8-ball to navigate a minefield. Like, why place so much weight on intuition over standard, verifiable evidence?
Because, according to the worldview she is laying out, standard, verifiable evidence is actually manufactured by a corrupt system.
Right.
She explicitly frames modern society as a matrix. And the entire purpose of this matrix is to suppress human intuition.
Oh, and she actually brings up Kanye West to make this exact point.
She does. She frames Kanye as someone who broke this programming simply by refusing to be put in a box. In this philosophy, trusting your gut isn't just, a hunch.
What is it then?
It is an act of spiritual warfare against a system designed to keep you blind. Think about how powerful that is for an audience.
Oh, totally.
If you believe society is actively lying to you through the media, the government, the medical establishment, then your internal, unverified intuition becomes literally the only reliable source of truth.
So if you genuinely believe the world is governed by these corrupt, hidden systems, you inevitably stop seeing the institutions around you as just normal businesses.
Right, they become part of the problem.
Exactly. You start seeing them as extensions of that matrix.
Yeah.
Which explains exactly why her exit from the Daily Wire wasn't framed as just a standard, contract dispute.
It's a seamless transition from the metaphysical straight to the corporate. If the institutions surrounding Charlie Kirk's death betrayed him, then the conservative media network she worked for betrayed her in the exact same way.
Right. And she describes the Daily Wire not as a media business, but explicitly as a cult masquerading as a business.
A cult. Wow.
Yeah. And the details she gives about her firing are brutal. She says she received an email terminating her contract just 15 minutes before the CEO, Jeremy Boring, held a company town hall.
Just 15 minutes.
15 minutes. And at this town hall, he allegedly played clips of the controversial figure Nick Fuentes, specifically to publicly humiliate her.
I mean, the narrative here is really about total institutional control. It's not enough to just fire someone. The organization has to completely destroy their reputation to maintain its power over the remaining employees.
And she takes it even further, claiming that the legal system itself is weaponized through arbitration clauses. She argues that these companies use arbitration not to settle disputes quietly, but to basically bankrupt and psychologically stalk former employees.
That's a huge claim.
Huge. And she proudly admits she currently owes $300,000 for defending a 22-year-old former colleague named Brett Cooper.
$300,000.
Yeah. She says that when the legal filing is finally over, she plans to frame it and tell her kids that having a backbone is worth the money.
I mean, it sounds like a cutthroat reality TV show.
It really does, where the contracts never truly end, and the moment you step out of line, your former best friends become your absolute worst enemies.
And that reality TV level of drama is elevated by the absolute moral stakes she attaches to it. Because these aren't framed as HR conflicts.
Right.
They are framed as existential tests of moral fortitude. Owens explicitly uses the phrase bending the knee to Satan when describing people who compromise their beliefs for money and influence in the media industry.
Which, sets up this fascinating contrast in character between the major players in her orbit.
How does she break that down?
Well, on one side, she praises Tucker Carlson for standing by her when Fox News temporarily banned her. She sees him as someone who refuses to bend the knee. But on the other side, she heavily criticizes her former colleague, Ben Shapiro.
Ah. Okay.
She claims Shapiro is deeply jealous, that he secretly tried to stop Charlie Kirk from working with her in the past, and that his actions are driven by a deep-seated sense of superiority tied to his family's history.
And this is where she introduces a massive geopolitical element into what at first just looks like a standard podcast rivalry.
Oh, she goes all the way in. She literally alleges that Shapiro's uncle sold U.S. uranium to Israel and wasn't charged because he pled anti-Semitism.
Wow.
Yeah. And she argues that Shapiro operates with a, quote, Talmudian sense of superiority. Now, I really need to pause here. For the listener trying to follow this, what does that actually mean in the context of her argument?
Right. Well, in her framework, she is claiming that Shapiro's worldview, based on her specific interpretation of certain religious texts, views non-believers or outsiders as fundamentally lesser, possessing the spirit of animals.
Which she then uses to explain his unwavering support for the war in Gaza. She connects a theological concept directly to modern warfare.
Exactly. It weaves a personal media rivalry into a sweeping geopolitical claim. She is arguing that these media figures aren't just operating from a place of political disagreement.
Right.
They are operating from a theological superiority that justifies, in their eyes, terrible actions on a global scale.
Wait, I really need to stop and process this for a second. We just jumped from a Daily Wire HR dispute where someone got fired via email, to uranium sales, the war in Gaza, and ancient theological superiority.
It's quite the leap.
Is this a common pattern in these types of interviews where everyday political grievances are somehow elevated into cosmic conspiracies?
It is the defining feature of this specific type of rhetoric.
Really?
Think about the psychological utility of it. If you get fired from your job, it feels bad, it's mundane, maybe a little embarrassing, but if you get fired because you are exposing a global, centuries-old occult war,
Oh, well, then you're a hero.
suddenly you are a hero in an epic saga. By linking Ben Shapiro, Hollywood, and global geopolitics to ancient mysticism, she creates this unified theory of everything.
A universe where literally nothing is a coincidence, where every bad event has some demonic blueprint behind it.
Exactly. Like, take the war in Ukraine. In this interview, it is not framed as a geopolitical conflict over borders or NATO expansion.
How does she frame it?
She frames it as a deliberate genocide designed to clear land for a greater Israel.
Wow.
By doing this, she gives immense, overarching meaning to world events that might otherwise seem chaotic or terrifyingly random to the average person.
So let's unpack the actual blueprint she believes is driving all of this, because she dives super deep into an 18th century mystical movement called Frankism.
Frankism.
Yes. Owens describes it as a tradition based on a false messiah named Jacob Frank. According to her narrative, Frank was bankrolled by the Rothschild family and instructed his followers to false convert and infiltrate the Catholic Church.
And she is very careful to distinguish this from traditional Judaism. She insists this is an occult infiltration that masquerades as other religions, whether that's Islam, Judaism, or Catholicism, in order to gain power from within and completely subvert those institutions.
And the historical claims she makes to support this are just astonishing. She asserts that major historical figures like Theodore Herzl, the father of modern political Zionism, and Sigmund Freud, the founder of psychoanalysis, were actually Frankists.
Wait, she connects Freud to this?
Yes. She claims Freud's real legacy wasn't psychology at all, but rather inventing a framework to gaslight children in order to cover up occult abuse rituals tied to Frankist initiation rites.
I mean, that sounds completely disconnected at first glance, but in her framework, it's actually vital.
How so?
It's a complete reinterpretation of history. Psychology is stripped of its scientific basis and reframed entirely as a cover-up mechanism.
Oh, I see.
If psychology is just a lie designed to hide abuse, then you can dismiss any psychological criticism of your own conspiracy theories. The historical threads are pulled directly into the present day to explain modern events.
Yeah, and the modern echoes she points to are wild. Like, she mentions the Vatican allegedly calling high-ranking D.C. Freemasons to explain a suspected coup.
Freemasons, too.
Of course. And she points to the recent Olympics in France, claiming the government mocked Jesus during the opening ceremonies. But she says they didn't do it as, like, an edgy artistic choice. She says they did it as part of a psychopathic revelation of the method.
Ah, the revelation of the method. That is arguably the most crucial concept to understand in this entire worldview.
Explain how that works, because honestly, it seems counterintuitive to me. Like, why would a secret occult group broadcast what they are doing on global television?
Right, well, the theory suggests that these occult groups actually must show you what they are doing in order to maintain their power.
Wait, really? They have to?
Yes. The idea is that if they put their symbolism right in front of your face, like in a music video, a corporate logo, or an Olympic ceremony, and you don't do anything to stop them, you have subconsciously consented to their rule.
Wow.
It's essentially a psychological subjugation tactic.
That is fascinating. But it also turns every single public event or piece of pop culture into a potential puzzle piece.
It does. It demands constant, exhausting vigilance from the believer. You can never just, watch a football game or an awards show. You have to constantly be decoding reality to ensure you aren't accidentally consenting to the occult.
So what does this all mean for Owens personally? I mean, if the world is run by this sprawling historical occult network, the ultimate proof of her theory is the sheer scale of the pushback she is receiving.
Right, the stakes have to match the claim.
Exactly. The stakes of the narrative continually escalate until they culminate in a literal legal battle with a foreign head of state.
Because the logic dictates that if you are exposing a centuries-old global network, the pushback has to be proportionate. A mere podcast feud just isn't enough. You need the global elite to come after you.
And they have, in the form of a lawsuit from Brigitte Macron, the wife of the French president.
That's a huge deal.
Oh, yeah. Owens has publicly championed claims that Brigitte was actually born male under the name Jean-Michel Trougneau, stole her brother's identity, and was tied to MKUltra.
And just for those who might not know, MKUltra was a real, highly controversial and illegal CIA mind control program from the Cold War.
Right.
And because it was real and eventually declassified, it has become the absolute holy grail for modern conspiracy theorists. It's constantly used as a bridge to suggest that if the government did that back then, well, they are capable of doing absolutely anything today.
Which perfectly sets the stage for how she views this lawsuit. Because rather than seeing a defamation suit from the First Lady of France as a deterrent or, a sign that maybe she went too far, Owens views it as the ultimate badge of honor.
Of course she does.
She points out that it's only the second time in world history a sitting president's spouse has sued an individual. She references some obscure historical case in Hawaii, I think.
So to her, this unprecedented legal action isn't proof that she's wrong or crossing a line?
No, not at all.
It's validation. It's undeniable proof that she struck a nerve with the global elite.
She even claims the White House tried to intervene. She says they asked her to stop talking about the Macron rumors because it was interfering with negotiations over the Ukraine war. It's like she views herself as this, spiritual whistleblower.
Oh, that's a great way to put it, because a traditional whistleblower leaks corporate documents, right?
Yeah.
But a spiritual whistleblower exposes the demonic architecture of reality.
And when you believe you are a spiritual whistleblower and the stakes are literally eternal damnation, getting sued by the president of France probably just feels like a minor administrative speed bump.
To understand that unshakable resolve, you really have to look at her stated motivations. She credits two main influences in the interview. First, her grandfather, who she says instilled a fierce temper and a deep sense of family loyalty in her.
Okay.
But more significantly, she credits her husband.
Her Oxford-educated husband. She explicitly says he's the one who taught her that, quote, everything is guided by theology.
And that theological anchor is the linchpin holding this massive universe together.
It has to be.
Without a literal belief in heaven and hell, the risks she is taking, inviting multi-million-dollar lawsuits, alienating powerful media allies, targeting foreign leaders, it would seem completely irrational, even reckless to an outside observer.
But with that theology, her defiance becomes the ultimate logical choice.
Precisely. If the battle you are fighting is eternal, then temporary earthly consequences simply do not matter.
She makes this incredibly clear when she says she will not trade her ticket to heaven for DC dinners with rubber chicken.
The rubber chicken dinners.
Yeah. And she contrasts this cosmic battle with her everyday life, noting that she stays grounded by dealing with toddler problems first thing in the morning in her homeschooling co-op.
That contrast is just...
Yeah, it's this wild juxtaposition, right? Battling global demonic forces that control the French government on one hand and packing lunches for toddlers on the other.
It perfectly illustrates how macro-level, world-spanning conspiracies are fully internalized into daily, micro-level living. The cosmic and the mundane are completely inextricably intertwined.
Let's just take a breath and look at the sheer distance we've traveled in this deep dive.
It's been a lot.
It has. We started with a highly relatable, grounded memory of glistening tacos in a New Mexico Chipotle. And from there, we navigated a labyrinth of brutal media rivalries, untangled theories of 18th century occultism and Sigmund Freud, and somehow ended up at a historic international lawsuit driven by an unshakable theological resolve.
It really is a masterclass in how modern narratives are constructed. They interweave the deeply personal with the cosmically grand, creating this airtight worldview that provides an answer for absolutely everything.
And if you're listening to this, remember what we said at the start. We've remained entirely neutral here. Our goal was simply to map out this source material. But, why should you care about this map?
Because it's everywhere now.
Right. Because whether you agree with a single word of these theories or not, understanding the architecture of these interconnected cosmic narratives is absolutely vital. It is the key to understanding the uncompromising high-stakes rhetoric that is dominating modern digital media right now.
This isn't just about Republicans versus Democrats anymore.
No,
It's about people living in fundamentally different realities.
it changes the entire nature of public discourse. When political opponents are no longer viewed as just people with different policy ideas, but as active participants in a demonic system, the rules of engagement completely transform.
They really do. The whole game changes.
Which leaves us with a lingering question to ponder as we wrap up today's deep dive. If our modern political and cultural disagreements are increasingly being viewed not just as different opinions, but as literal cosmic battles between angels and demons, how does a society ever negotiate or find common ground? After all, how do you compromise with someone if you genuinely believe they are part of an ancient occult conspiracy?